37th parallel on America's haunted highway. It's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
Sweet. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a late episode of Pixelated Paranormal. I'm Sean. This is episode 327, and I don't think the universe wanted this show to happen, and that's perhaps because we have the return of one of America and the UK's favorite supervillains. That's right. This episode is going to be all about Spring Heel Jack and a potential return 100 years later. With me, as always, is Preston. Preston, besides being rife with technological issues, how are you, buddy?
What's up, all you cool ghosts and goblins, you crocodines and crocodingos, you skeletor, skeletons, witchers and witches, and whatever the fuck else you want to be. Don't be a fucking computer guru, because that's not working out for anybody that we know, including us, but I might. Fine.
I know. You couldn't get your damn monitor to sync up, and then I popped in here, turned my computer on, and mine apparently froze sometime between 2 days ago and today. So anyway, what can you do, buddy? What can you do? Just smile, cuss a little bit, and persevere. Yep. Well, if you haven't looked at the title of the episode,
my problem is I'm
you go.
I'm fat, right? Or I'm getting fatter.
Oh.
So my computer is not up on the desk. It's like off to the side because I have my record player up on the desk. So like I actually right here, because I had to like pull the monitor I had to pull like the computer out a little bit, and then I had to get on the floor underneath the table and try to like stretch my arms to try to figure out what fucking port was gonna work except the HMDI, because I have like 3 HMDI ports on the back of the computer. Dude, now this fucking hurts right in here. Like,
oh, your right titty, huh?
My right titty hurts, dude. It's like I pulled a muscle, man.
I think you sprained your titty pop, man. You can't do that kind of shit.
I know. So it's a sign of getting old.
Just beware. It is a sign of getting old. You got to stretch. You got to stretch before you podcast. Yeah, when you said, I'm getting fat and my computer's on my desk, I just pictured Homer Simpson in that episode where he's got the moo-moo and he's just grown just exponentially huge.
Yeah.
Oh, good shit. Well, on this episode, I'm pretty stoked, man, because I was just Googling like obscure cryptids and just like weird paranormal stories. And I came across this thing called the Phantom Black Flash. And immediately I thought of like DC Comics and maybe like, Reverse Flash or Zombie Flash or whatever the hell it's called. And I discovered a pretty cool like epilogue to the old Spring Heel Jack story that we told. Back on episode 204, we talked about the tale of Spring Heel Jack. That was back on episode 204, Flying Humanoids Part 1, The Rocketeers of the 50s. And we talked about the tale of Spring Heel Jack. And we'll pop in here in a second and tell kind of a little prologue and remind everybody about who and what Spring Heel Jack was. But Preston, do you remember much about that story yourself?
No, not really. I mean, I know that it inspired Jumpin' Jack Flash as a gas. And like all these people thought they saw this dude with the top hat that fucking sprung all around and like noxious green gas floated around him, and like everybody thought it was like hallucinogenic and like maybe like an alien who was spreading the plague. All sorts of shit. That's about it. That's all I remember.
Hell yeah. And if I remember right, wasn't he a precursor to Jack the Ripper? I believe Spring Heel Jack came about right before that reign of terror as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, couldn't find anything else about, paranormal shit that happened on July 4th, but I did find you guys a story about shit jumping up into the air. So anyway, here's a little prologue.
Red. He's like the devil himself, and he springs into the night, causing mayhem and mischief.
Was that off the cuff or are you reading some?
No, that's off the cuff, baby.
Damn, look at you go, buddy.
Yeah.
Look at you go. Well, I'll piggyback on what you just said. Spring Hill Jack was undefiably this bizarre assailant that began tormenting London back around like 1837. The first sightings said that a servant named Mary Stevens reported walking to Lavender Hill when a bizarre figure leaped out, grabbing her and scratching her with his razor-like claws. He tore away, parts of her dress. It exposed one of her breasts in some stories.
You can run,
and
but
she started
you can't
screaming
hide,
and
bitch.
yelling.
Ah!
I'm going to allow that one because that would be a slight reference to Freddy Krueger and Scary Terry. Anyway, yes, she started screaming, trying to get the attentions of passerbys who searched for the assailant, but were never able to find him. All they knew is from her account is that he somewhat seemingly bounded off into the night, apparently jumping over a wall. Well, following the first account, several other young women reported seeing sightings throughout suburban London, and according to early reports, the attacker was described as being inhumanly tall, so like 7-8 feet tall, ghostly in appearance, wearing a long coat and tails, also wearing long leather gloves that had sharp claws on the ends, pointy ears, sharp razor-like teeth, and a tall, pointy helmet. Some described it as a top hat, others said a tight-fitting silver helmet, and of course the signature glowing red eyes like the embers of hell. Now, rumors of the strange figure swirled around London for about a year, with the press soon giving him the nickname Spring-Heeled Jack. The story was thought to be nothing more than exaggerated gossip or ghost stories until the next encounter the following year in February 1838. A young lady named Jane Alsop claimed that a gentleman wearing a cloak rang her doorbell late one night, so she walks over to see who it is, opens the door, and she said suddenly the man took off his cloak and revealed a tight-fitting white oil slick-like costume, a long cape, and suddenly he breathed blue fire and white flames into her face and began to slash again at her clothing, supposedly revealing her breast as well. Now, luckily, Alsop's sister was able to scare the attacker away, making him flee from the scene. But again, they reported he seemed to jump inhumanly high as he ran away. A guy named Thomas Milbank was arrested later and tried for the attacks on Jane Alsop. However, due to her insistence that the attacker could breathe fire, this guy wasn't convicted. So, she had, expert witness testimony there and saved his bacon. Just a few days later, a similar account was reported by an 18-year-old woman named Lucy Scales. She said she was out walking with her sister in Limehouse when again the strange figure leaped at her from an alleyway, again blew flames into her face, leaving her in a state of hysterics. The attacker left the scene and again was never found, though several men were brought in for questioning. Following the accounts of Jane Alsop and Lucy Scales, Spring-Heeled Jack sightings were reported all around England, even reaching into parts of Scotland. His victims were mostly described as young women, and they all described a similar account of a mysterious man, thin in a tight-fitting costume, red glowing eyes, claws for hands, and the rumors began to spread even farther, and the story of Spring-Heeled Jack began to take on a life of its own. Several plays and novels and penny dreadfuls were written featuring Spring-Heeled Jack as the antagonist throughout the second half of the 19th century, cementing his status as a figurehead of urban legend and folklore alike. But then as time went on, the reports of Spring-Heeled Jack sightings began to grow even more bizarre, perhaps fueled by popular fictitious accounts. Even more superhuman traits were attributed to him, including the ability to leap through the air as high as enough to clear a building. But then the stories of bizarre phantom
and like titties.
It could have been. He's a simple man. He knows what he likes.
Yeah.
And then the stories of a bizarre phantom only continued to grow. Well, suddenly the sightings quickly tapered off as the legend of Spring-Heeled Jack faded away into urban folklore, never to be seen again. Right, Preston? That's a story that we know.
No, but you're gonna lay it on me that
Well,
somebody did see him again. We saw him here in the old
but
U.S. of A.
yeah, I'm about to butter your biscuit, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that perhaps this creature may have only gone into hiding just to spring back into his old tricks. Or perhaps, maybe it's a completely new, bizarre, bounding phantom who begun to terrorize a whole new countryside all the way over in the great US of A 100 years later. So, with the sound of fireworks in the background, let's get into the tale of the Phantom Black Flash. One of the more enduring cases of such phantoms intruders is an emanating, ominous black-cloaked figure that stepped forward from some dark place to terrorize yet another small town in Massachusetts. Our story starts back in October of 1939, 100 years after the initial Spring Hill Jack stories. This time we're going to Provincetown on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, in the good old US of A, where frightened children who were out and about running amok in the October month celebrating Halloween oftentimes were returning home from a night of hijinks with scary stories to tell, claiming they'd seen an extremely tall figure, dressed in all black, that would suddenly appear out of nowhere, growling ominously, only to disappear again in a sudden flash. Some of these reports claim the thing had a hideous, deformed face and glowing red eyes. Whatever it was, whatever they were seeing, this ghoulish phantom only continued to terrorize children all through Cape Cod. Kids would return home screaming and crying to their parents, shaking inconsolably. Yet, just as scared as these kids were, their parents really didn't believe them, because that's how that all goes down. After all, it's just Halloween, and it all seemed just like the overactive imaginations of kids who were jacked up on sugar and, causing mischief around the neighborhoods. But then one night, a woman named Mary Costa was walking down an old shadowy street by herself past the city hall when suddenly she claimed an impossibly tall figure, nearly 8 feet tall, suddenly jumped out of the bushes, looming menacingly in front of her. She said this thing was described as having long, pointed ears and glowing red eyes, which it used to coldly stare down at her moments before fleeing back into the darkness with a series of inhuman, incredible leaps and bounds, far beyond what any normal human was capable. Miss Costa claimed that she had run into a nearby coffee shop telling everybody what she just saw, and some of the men took her serious and busted out of the coffee shop into the darkness chasing after the strange creature. But they were left empty-handed. Now, police did take this report seriously at first. It was pretty soon followed by similar accounts by other adults, though, in which case the police now had a bizarre mystery on their hands. And again, in all the cases, this strange apparition was claimed to be dressed in all black, complete with flapping black cape, and it possessed a set of glowing eyes, which in some cases were said to be silver, kind of like an animal, like eye shine, though most people said they could have sworn they were glowing red. It's also said that there was a weird insect-like buzzing noise that would appear just before he would jump out of the shadows. Others say it would let out a malevolent, unsettling laugh that was described as an unearthly timbre in tone. It is also known as being extremely fast and agile, as well as purported superhuman jumping abilities. A lot of witnesses claimed that it could easily leap over fences and could jump nearly 10 feet into the air in one single bound. So this made police just a little more cautious, because they started getting a lot of different reports from a lot of different areas of town nearly at the same time, suggesting now that this thing was either incredibly fast or could somehow teleport or even fly. Or there might have been more than one of these things.
This is a fucking predator,
anyway,
man.
Most of these... yeah, pretty much, right? Little cloaking device. While most of these encounters involved the mysterious dark phantom merely startling or terrorizing witnesses before laughing and bounding away into the darkness, something it seemed like it was taking great pleasures in, other incidents were decidedly more terrifying. In one specific case, a guy named Charles Farley that he actually shot the creature and he knows he hit it, but it had totally been unfazed by the buckshot, simply laughing maniacally before nimbly jumping over his fence again in one solitary leap. A different man reported that he suddenly confronted the creature and Another man reported that he had been suddenly confronted and cornered by the creature and had instinctively thrown a punch, trying to clock this thing just right on the jaw button. But wouldn't you know it, he said the monster simply reached out and caught his fist in its own hand, then proceeded to crush the man's bones before breaking it, and then throwing him to the ground effortlessly, like he was some kind of discarded toy. Yet another violent encounter happened shortly after, when yet another witness claimed the creature had lashed out to strike him with a breathtaking superhuman blow that sent the man flying up into the air. And he says someone texted me right as I was reading. And he says the entire ordeal was witnessed by another group of full-grown men. This time, the men claimed the creature shot blue fire from all of them from its mouth. Now, before long, the town and other areas were buzzing with talk of what people started calling the Provincetown Phantom. Also, the Black Phantom, the Phantom Fiend, the Devil of the Dune, and the Black Flash, all names media would go into a frenzy and use to describe this new creature lurking about. Indeed, there were a variety of sensational reports of some kind of spectral black flash at the time in newspapers and on radio newscasts, which along with the increasing number of sightings really whipped people up into this panicked fever, right? It's almost like the time that we had the War of the Worlds being casted over the radio. Speculation goes rampant on what it could be, and some people thought it might have just been a simple group of pranksters or even a peeping Tom. But other people were sure that they were being stalked by some kind of supernatural entity like a ghost or a demon with an inscrutable agenda not of this world. Even some religious folk thought it might have been the devil himself. Now, what makes things even worse here are other bizarre and unsettling events that orbited the Black Flash fiasco sightings. It wouldn't be long after this time that, in fact, Orson Welles would have his famous CBS radio broadcast of War of the Worlds that aired back on Sunday, October 30th, 1938, which then sent parts of the country into mass frenzied panics, further causing stress and uneasiness on the onset of World War II and the looming shadow of violence pulling America in. This seriously weighed on the nation's mind at the time, as well as devastating the effects from the Great Depression. So there's lots of various things going on. People are already pissed off, upset, scared, and now you got this creature who's kind of lurking in the dark, just giggling, blowing fire, and, jumping over 10-foot walls. But then to add to that, we have news of a new sea monster that washed up on the shore of the Wood End, only later to be identified, of course, as a rotting basking shark. But you also had a serial arsonists who began terrorizing towns around that September. And then you had the enigmatic appearance of the Black Flash Phantom. All these things converging no doubt caused this story just to pulsate and grow and throb, really sensationalize and terrorize all these great people at Cape Cod. And with that, of course, you have to imagine different parts of the story are getting embellished, different pieces of the story are being added and taken away and sensationalized. That's just how that mass hysteria goes, right? Well, the story typically then goes, the Black Flash would supposedly go in to torment groups of people in Provincetown for 7 full years, with reports going all the way up into 1945. One of these incidents that was taking place in November of 45 was with a group of police officers who apparently saw the Phantom leap over a 10-foot high fence after they went into a schoolyard to investigate a series of sightings. Later on, a month after, a group of children claimed they had been attacked by the Black Flash and had escaped into their houses to seek refuge, where they hid in fear as this creature laughed maniacally and banged his fist and scratched his sharp claws across the outsides of the house, rattling the walls and shaking the doors. Another man by the name of Louis Gennard allegedly got a hot pan of boiling water one evening and threw it on the creature as it supposedly attacked his house, which sent the creature screaming off into the night and would mark the end of the purported series of events and sightings of the Phantom Black Flash. So whatever it was, the question still remains. Just what the hell was it? A lot of theories have been proposed on the answer, but it's not gone unnoticed that the Black Flash was in many ways similar to another mysterious phantom that attacked and terrorized parts of Great Britain back 100 years previously, known as Spring Heel Jack. There's several similarities between the two creatures, right? We got the glowing eyes, the black cloak, the ability to make enormous leaps and jumps over 6 to 10 foot tall fences. So it caused a lot of people to think just maybe Black Flash and Spring Heel Jack were one and the same, possibly the same exact phantom entity. But it also could mean that some of the details from these reports were embellished or added just to make it seem that way. It's hard to tell. But indeed, relentless sensationalism of the stories in that case and time, and embellishments and additions and exaggerations made over all these years, as well as substantial lore that had accrued and surrounded itself to have been made, makes it difficult to separate fact from fiction when it comes to the case of the Black Flash. Other ideas,
Lazarus, I agree with you. This dude was jacked up on abstinence and booger sugar.
Abstinence, like he wasn't having sex? Is that what it was, Preston? The guy had fucking blue balls?
Yeah, man.
Absinthe?
Yeah, that too. Man, that too.
That too. The guy was just drunk and horny. Horny heel Flash.
He's a gas.
Other ideas. Other ideas here is this is nothing more than just a classic case of mass hysteria or collected delusion, a folie à deux or a trois or a quat or, whatever. But anyway, it's this spooky story that just escalates until everybody is just caught in the grip. And then, of course, at the center of it back in the, the 30s, and of course, back in the 1830s, everything boils up into this thing being a demon, right? Because we're just really set into our religion. But then you also have lots of folklore of ghosts and vampires. So again, these liberties are taken, and suddenly you've got this weird folklore that just really grips you and just takes over. So
it's
hard to say.
It's got to be
what happened real.
That's the common factor in naming anything demonic. Black-eyed children, black beast of whatever. So if it's demonic and it hides in the shadows, you just you call it what Oh, that the Black Flash, the black-eyed kids, the black devil thing that's hiding in the forest is going to get you. It's got red glowing eyes, looks like a giant shadow. It's got mist around it, sometimes green shit, follows on it. I'm surprised they didn't call the Mothman the Black Moth. There's this thing in Pleasant Point, West Virginia called the Black Moth. It's got red glowing eyes, could be a demon. Hides in the shadows. It's 7 feet tall. No light bounces off of it. It's so fucking dark. With those red glowing eyes, got to be a demon, guy. You better get out the fucking holy water. Goddamn demons are all over the place.
Well, calling it the Black Moth is not much different than calling it the Mothman. Like, there's still not much originality in that name either, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, through all of that, authorities at the time were certain this all was stemming from a malicious prank, and all of the news of the Black Flash suddenly spread everywhere, and a lot of people believed this could be a real mysterious creature. It seems that actually a lot of people in Provincetown itself concurred that it most likely was just a set of jokesters and yet again peeping Toms. The chief of police, Anthony Tavers, even claimed to have known
it was just Jerry. It was cousin Jerry. He just likes looking through windows. Don't worry about it.
It's his cousin Jerry and his blue balls.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he just hasn't jacked off in a while, and it's got too much booger sugar in him. So, just maybe give him a peep. Give him a little show. He'll go away.
Yep. The chief of police, Anthony Tavers, claimed to have even known the name of the perpetrators involved and just how they did it. According to Chief Tavers, it was 4 local boys who were playing a Halloween trick to scare everybody in Cape Cod. And they had actually accomplished it by one boy standing on another's shoulders and then covering themselves with a large black cape and wearing a mask. 2 sets of boys claimed to have been coordinating the costumes and appearances in order to make it look like they were teleporting or dashing at supernatural speeds throughout town. Kind of similar, I don't know if you guys have watched the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost movie, Hot Fuzz, but there was kind of a similar instance in there as well. I won't spoil anything, but if you haven't watched that movie, check it out. Tavers went on to say he even went as far as to speak with the alleged group of culprits and their parents, and this is why the whole phenomenon had come to a sudden halt. But he never did release the name of the perpetrators, so no one's ever claimed responsibility or been pinned down with the supposed hoax. The final statement from Tavers was already apparently not even an official police pronouncement, so he didn't even really put this like on official, report. He just kind of said, yeah, I know who it is, so everyone can just kind of calm down. So the Black Flash's potent jumping ability, agility, strength, toughness, and other purported powers weren't even really addressed because, again, all we got was a story saying 2 kids were standing on each other's shoulders. 2 groups of kids were standing on each other's shoulders, but it doesn't account for how this thing was, jumping and bounding over 10-foot tall fences.
Yeah. How the kids make the eyes glow back in the whatever in the the dark ages. They didn't have fucking LED lights in their mask. Like how they make the eyes glow. I'm gonna call poppycock.
We're talking about the 1930s, right? So we've got Ray-Ban sunglasses at that point.
It's not like they had like little red. How'd they make them glow? Is what I'm saying. It's not like they had. It's not like they had like what battery powered Christmas lights they could throw behind some plastic lenses.
Okay, hold on. Flashlights. When were flashlights invented?
If you would have said the 80s, I could believe it. I'd be like, yeah, some fucking kids.
So David Missel apparently invented the flashlight back in 1899 that used 3 D-cell batteries. So, I see what you're saying, but these guys could have just thrown these on with a set of sunglasses. What did I say? Ray-Bans? When were Ray-Bans invented? When were Ray-Bans?
And flashlights were a common household
1927? 1936. I don't know. You're right, because we're coming out of the Depression. I don't know. All I'm saying is, a big bulky flashlight and a set of Ray-Ban sunglasses. Ray-Bans were made in 1936. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is it leads to the conspiracy.
Says, they would just smash up lightning bugs and put the lightning bug jizz all over their face, and that's how they got the glow.
Dude, my high school best friend used to do that. He'd eat a handful of lightning bugs and then bite down as soon as they flashed and spread that shit all over his mouth. It was really gross and really funny. And kind of cruel, I guess, as well. Anyway, the reason I bring this story up is because it kind of threads its way into the conspiracies here, because a lot of people began to suspect Tavers was merely making up this story to cover some supernatural creature or something even worse that was haunting and stalking Cape Cod. But in the end, anyway, it's unclear just what exactly Black Flash Phantom was. It wasn't really clear which elements of the story are true and which are complete fiction, how much is poppycock and how much is folklore. But the story continues to be talked about to this very day, at this very moment, on this very podcast. With all the tales and the mishmash of information out there on the Black Flash of Provincetown, just about all we can say for sure is something definitely was in the newspapers as terrorizing Provincetown back in 1939. But Preston, buddy, old pal, old friend, I do have a fun little epilogue to this story. Because we know this thing supposedly stalked the streets of England. And we know it made its way over to the US of A. But what if I told you there was yet a third creature that was seen, but this time celebrated as more of a hero, back over across the seas in Prague? Apparently, there was a bizarre Gothic phantom that was said to have shown up right at the height of World War II back in 1945. The same MO, Caped Crusader, glowing eyes, razor-sharp fingers, and extreme and jumping abilities. This creature began called Parak the Spring Man and became something of an urban legend. Now, originally, the creature was said to be a bit of a boogeyman, scaring a lot of the Prague and the Czech people. But suddenly, as German occupied parts of Prague as a whole, back in World War II, Nazis began to tell tale of a strange creature that was lurking in the dark, with glowing eyes, a hooded cowl, razor-sharp fingers, and every time they tried to accost it or capture the man, it was said to be able to jump at heights of 6 to 10 feet and could easily evade their capture every single time. So this thing goes from being a boogeyman to a bit of a celebrated hero, like this weird, like, adjunct Captain America, right?
Yeah, don't.
There's stories of
people,
Nazis.
People of Prague, don't fucking celebrate too early. It's not this guy, this boogie monster, Prague jumper, whatever you just said his name was. He didn't want to be the hero. He was just upset that those German fucks came into town and he couldn't squeeze on titties anymore because they were too busy occupying. So he's like, fuck you, Germany. Get the fuck out of here so I can get back to squeezing titties. That's all it was. He's not a hero.
My town. I got shit to do.
Yeah, this is my fucking town.
Well, stories got so crazy and outlandish that Nazis were claiming this thing was able to jump over train carriages and small buildings. They also went on to say that some Nazis would report to have tried to corner this thing in an alleyway only to have their uniforms slashed to bits with bizarre cuts and deep, lacerations to their face and their arms. And then the people in Prague really took this thing a step farther, and this really fucked up production for the Nazis because, they invaded Prague and they were using these factories and taking the Czech people and forcing them to make weapons for them to help support them in the war efforts in World War II. But because the Nazis believed in this boogeyman as well, a lot of the factory workers were just like, fuck it, I'm not going to work today. I'm not going to walk in the dark down these alleys while this thing's out there fucking capturing us. Meanwhile, they started making like propaganda posters and telling stories about how like this is basically a Nazi killer. So anyway, no matter how you slice it, we got Spring Hill Jack, we got the Phantom Black Flash, and then we got Parak, the Nazi killing Spring Man. This story goes places, people.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't think I was going to bring Nazis into it, did you?
No, I didn't. But color me surprised.
Yeah, I will. I'll color you surprised, man. But yeah, that's what I got, man. It seems that maybe Phantom Jack and Phantom Black Flash and Spring Hill Jack might have been one and the same.
I think we should create a rubber suit that's just nothing but like titties, and then just kind of walk out around all the places it's been cited and be like, "Come on, Prague jumper, look at all the titties I got all over.
Yeah,
give me a squeeze."
What do you call it? Titty Hill Jack?
Yeah, and then okay, so look, here's the thing. So I got the titty suit on. I'll be the bait, and then you hide in the shadows. And when when comes out and tries to give me a squeeze, you pop it over the head with something. We'll knock it out. Cryptid mystery solved.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then you're going to have this thing called like the titty beast of, Skateboard Swamp. And like, I don't know. I seen it. It was a lot like that Bigfoot, but it's just covered in nipples and swinging titties. It'd be a real, a real full circle on the story of, the original Bigfoot footage and having pendulous breasts. Just like move over, Bigfoot. We got a titty monster.
Somebody tries to debunk it, so they're sitting there like just going through all the video footage. They're like, now 4 of those were real titties. I'm not sure about the rest of them. They didn't have a proper swing. See, I'm a video analyst, and I can tell you the angle of that one, it was clearly a fake.
People are going to get footage of the beast, just like the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and they're going to slow it down and be like, hold on a second. Back on episode 327 of Pixelated Paranormal, if you slow it down, it looks a lot like Preston's right titty that he bumped on the computer that time.
Yeah.
We got reason to believe this is just Preston in a titty suit. I like where this episode went, man. I brought Nazis and you brought titty monsters. You're
that could
welcome,
be like that could be the next
listeners and
horror.
viewers.
That could be the next B movie that we actually make. Scott, fuck you if you're listening. It's ours. I called dibs on it right now.
Called dibs on the titty monster.
Yeah.
I need an official name for this creature before next episode so we can present it to everybody. You know, I really think that'd be something good. Oh, hell. And maybe that could be the subject of the next late night episode as well.
Oh, we could actually write
I'd almost ask
smut.
you.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want it. Just be, I don't know, maybe. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Next late night episode, we're going to have our first ever originally written cryptid smut about the titty monster.
And there the creature was laying on its back with all of its glorious titties, so I decided to ram my rod in and out. I had so many spots, I didn't know where to go. I gave new meaning to the phrase backshot.
I think it's time to go ahead and pull out of this episode.
Oh! Like pull in something,
man?
pull out of something, need a beard, want a beard, want the best goddamn beard possible. Go over to BigDobsBeardBomb.com and use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your order. Pick yourself up some scents like bay rum, fresh, citrus, mint, classic, sweet tobacco, and my new favorite, Spartan. And Alan, if you're listening, I think there should be a new beard scent called Titty Monster. You know, for your beard only fans, they need, you know, something along the lines of that name. So make it happen, buddy. Oh yeah. Get it all.
Yeah.
Get it to Dobbs.
I don't really have a segue into CD Trade Post other than go see our dear friend Leslie and the rest of the gang over at CD Trade Post, Pawnee and Seneca, and then stop by Paranormal.cafe and the Paranormal Experience food truck. Cool. With that, guys, back over to Conspiracy's next episode. So strap in. It'll be a bit of a longer one. But yeah, thanks for joining us on this one. This was a lot of fun. And I guess until next time, I'll open up this bottle of water, take a little swig, and say, well, I guess I'll punch my microphone. Cheers to the weird shit in the world and those of us who love to talk about it.
And stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.